Welcome, everyone, to Young at Heart. This is session number 121, and I'm Father James DeLucio with the Paulist Fathers, having some downtime with you to share nursery rhymes, stories, poems, Mother Goose, Aesop's fables, nonsense, and other things to keep us young at heart. And the topic for today, of other things, is part 2 of the story of Beauty and the Beast. We just began yesterday, introduced to a family of a merchant who was a widower, but he had 3 adult children, 3 sons, 3 daughters. The youngest was the most beautiful young girl one could possibly meet. As a child, she was called the Little Beauty, and even as an adult, the name stuck. So she was referred to as Beauty by all who loved her, and her heart was as beautiful as her looks. She was dear, she was caring, she was kind. Her older sisters, however, did not appreciate her, for they were selfish, greedy, and very condescending, and they would mimic Beauty and make fun of her. The father, however, saw all, and Beauty had a very special place in his heart. Meanwhile, the 3 brothers were industrious, and they were helping their father in his business. But very soon after we encounter them, the merchant loses all his money. All his goods were lost at sea, and now there's nothing left for the family except a small country house to which they had to move from their grand house in the city. The older sisters, of course, are very, very irritated by this change of fortune. The 3 sons go to work there, creating a farm, and we were left with Beauty, who took responsibility for the change, getting up at 4 in the morning to do all the house cleaning and the cooking and to make sure that the family had a stable life. We'll continue. Now, in the beginning, Beauty found it very difficult, this new way of life, for she had not been used to working as a servant. But in less than 2 months' time, she grew stronger and healthier more than ever before. Now, after she had done her work, she liked to read or play the harpsichord, or she would sing while she would spin on the needle. On the contrary, her 2 sisters did not know how to spend their time. They got up at 10. They did nothing but saunter the whole day long, and they left all the work for Beauty, while they just sat and lamented their fine clothes and their loss of fine acquaintances. "Do but see our younger sister," said they one to another. "What a poor, stupid, mean-spirited child she is, to be happy in this unhappy, dismal situation that we are in." The good merchant was, of course, of a different opinion of his daughter, for he knew very well that Beauty outshone her sisters in humility and in industry, and he was especially proud of her mind and her patience. Above all, that is what he loved most about her, her humility and her patience. For her sisters not only left her all the work in the house to do, but they kept insulting her mercilessly. Now, the family had lived a year in this retirement, and the merchant then suddenly received a letter with an account that one of his vessels, filled with his effects, had arrived safely at the harbor. This news had to turn the heads of the 2 oldest daughters, who immediately flattered themselves with the hope of returning to town, for they were quite weary of the country. And when they saw their father ready to set out, they begged him to buy them new gowns, new headdresses, ribbons, and all manners of trifles. But Beauty asked for nothing, for she did not think of herself. Instead, She asked her father for a small thing, knowing that if she did not ask for something, it would be looked at as if she were making some kind of judgment or condemnation on her sisters. "What will you have, Beauty?" said her father. "Since you have the goodness to think of me," answered she, "be so kind to bring me a rose, for none grows hereabouts. They're kind of a rarity." Now, of course, she didn't even care for the rose, but the reason for her request I have already explained. The good man went on his journey, but when he came to the merchant ship, the lawyers were there, for he owed them so much money, and they took the merchandise, and after a great deal of trouble and no pains, and pains to no purpose, he came back, or he went back to his family as poor as before. Now he was in 30 miles of his house, thinking on the pleasures that he should see his children again, when going through a large forest, he lost himself. It rained and snowed terribly. Besides, the wind was so high that it thrice threw him off his horse. And night was coming on. He began to apprehend himself being either starved to death or dying of cold, or else devoured by the wolves, whom he heard howling all around him, when, all of a sudden, looking through a long walk of trees, he saw a light at some distance, and going a little farther, he perceived that the light came from a beautiful palace, illuminated from top to bottom. The merchant returned God thanks for this happy discovery, and he hasted to the place, but he was greatly surprised at not meeting anyone in the outer courts. His horse followed him, and seeing a large stable open, went right in, and finding both hay and oats to eat, the poor beast, who was almost famished, fell to eating very heartily, and the merchant tied him up in the manger, and walking towards the house, where he still saw no one, but entered into a large hall, and he found there a great fire. And beyond the fireplace there was a table plentifully set out. As he was quite wet through with rain and snow, the merchant drew near to the fireplace to dry himself. "I hope," he said, "that the master of the house or his servants will excuse this liberty I take. I suppose it won't be long now before some of them appear." And therein is part 2 of Beauty and the Beast, and I assure you that the best is soon to come. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a good, quiet, peaceful afternoon, a good evening. Stay safe and healthy, and God bless. Bye, everyone.